I'll turn it over now to Christy Lee.
So now it is my honor to introduce the speakers today. First we have Kevin Lambert. He is one of the directors of the State Department of Veterans Services. While in the military, he served as a U.S. Army specialist, and during his 16-month tour of duty in Iraq, he suffered multiple injuries that led to his medical discharge. And Mr. Lambert chose to continue his call to service by assisting other veterans, and he has pioneered veterans outreach efforts such as the statewide Homelessness and Reintegration Program, or SHARP, helping veterans in his way in that position. Please welcome Kevin Lambert.
Thank you very much. I can't tell you guys how honored I am to be here. Secretary Nee sends his regrets. He always regrets missing events like this, but just to be clear, he asked if Ronnie the service dog could fill in for him, and I could just translate what she says. So everything is all the dog. She's really the true success of myself. So I can't, again, tell you how much of an honor and privilege it is to be here today with everyone. And I'll tell you, I showed up like a good soldier about an hour and 20 minutes early, wondering what the heck was I thinking coming so early on a beautiful Saturday. I'll tell you that for about an hour I got to hear some of the most tremendous stories from our next two guest speakers. And I'll tell you that I felt I got more wisdom in the past hour at that table than I have through college, military, everything else. So it's been a true honor and privilege to sit with you guys. So thank you very much. Again, I'd like to thank the organizers. Gary, thank you. Excuse me, I should get the name of Kathy. Thank you very much. And the organizers of the event for today. And I'm here a little bit to talk on behalf of the Secretary about what we're doing here in Massachusetts. Fortunately, as an injured combat veteran myself, I was not wounded by the enemy, but I suffered some back injuries, which led to multiple other injuries throughout deployment to my body. Coming home wounded, it was a tough thing, and injured. Becoming a member of this department was one of the things that saved my life and these services that go on. And we can't say enough that we wouldn't have the services we have today if it wasn't for the struggles of the Vietnam veterans. And the lack of sense of community that they had that we have today is what makes the difference. And again, it's an honor to be here with the Purple Heart recipients and especially the Gold Star family members. It's the way we honor the true heroes, the fallen, by taking care of you. So with the Department of Veteran Services, I'd like to start with just saying, we are the leading state in the nation in taking care of our veterans. We are that because of people like you in this room today, supporting events like this, and the sacrifices that everybody has made. One of the main things that distinguishes our state from other states is our Chapter 115 and financial assistance. With that comes about 251 veteran service officers across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that are there to provide local support services, and most importantly, that financial assistance to those veterans and dependents in need of that. We are the only state in the nation to have a financial assistance program separate for veterans and their dependents, and it's an extremely large budget, and we're pretty proud of that. Our Women's Veterans Network, and you're going to hear from an extremely well-spoken woman veteran here shortly. Our Women's Veterans Network in Massachusetts is a pretty robust one, and it was formed in 1997, and originally it was formed to recognize those waves and the WACs and the World War II women who served, and for years were never recognized. As I joined the department in about 2007, there was a shift, and their event used to be called Women Are Veterans Too at the State House every year. When I joined the department, they changed it to Women Veterans Appreciation Day because it was very clear that women are veterans too, and we didn't have to tell people that. And a little statistic that female veterans are our fastest growing population of veterans. And with all the changes and rules and laws, they're going to be seeing even more combat. And even when I was in combat in 2005, 2006, there were women who were shot, blown up, and gave their lives for our country. Our Women's Veterans Network, not only do we host annual events and spring flings, we just had our Women's Veterans Conference at Nichols College last weekend. It was a beautiful event. They also provide over 550 direct link and referral services to female veterans across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts every single year under the leadership of Viviana Marcotte. Our SAVE program is the next thing I'd like to talk about. So the statewide advocacy of veterans empowerment. It's a first of its kind peer-to-peer suicide prevention program in the country, and it's been pretty successful. We are peers that are out in the community. We are all combat veterans or family members of veterans who have come home and struggled through transition. And our goal is to reach out to other veterans within the community, whether they came home yesterday, 40 years ago, 80 years ago, 4 days ago, and ensure that themselves and the family members not only have access to those benefits and services they've earned, but can actually utilize those benefits and services. Again, our core mission being suicide prevention, we generally do that by advocating on behalf of the veterans and their family members across the Commonwealth. Obviously, homelessness is a huge issue, so we have our SHOP program, which you mentioned, which is statewide housing advocacy for reintegration and prevention. This has been one of our more successful programs. We currently have over 13 staff, and we've worked with over 900 individuals that were either chronically homeless, currently became homeless, or were facing homelessness across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and we're able to either offer them, whether it's emergency shelter, permanent supportive housing, or just help prevent them from becoming homeless themselves. And our last program I'd like to talk about is our jail diversion program we recently started. Everyone in the room knows that when veterans come home, especially if they come home from combat tours in the military, that we face some transitional issues that we go through. When I first started doing this job, I had the privilege of going into jails, and it's weird when people say they had the privilege of going into jails. But I can't tell you, I met with over 100 Vietnam era veterans who started on their first OUI, second OUI, fifth OUI, and you just see this trend. In 2007, the VA did a study that there was over 57,500 Vietnam veterans still incarcerated across the nation in 2007. That's more than 40 years after the war. Almost as many that were killed in the entirety of the war were still incarcerated and facing that struggle and transition. And when you looked at what they were lacking and what you asked them, it was that sense of community. One of the biggest parts of Secretary Nee and the work we're doing is building strong collaborations. And what I've learned is that by having strong collaborations and community members like this attending events, we have a strong community. When we look at the successes and failures of our past veterans, and I had this conversation at the table, it's the community that makes the difference. It's great we have the VA, we have the state. We've had us for hundreds and hundreds of years. Obviously, without that sense of community welcoming you back and helping you reintegrate, we'd never be able to serve our veterans. So again, it's been a true honor and a privilege to be here today with you, and I don't want to take any more time from the real true heroes and the speakers today. So thank you guys all very much, and again, Secretary Nee,
Thank you, Kevin and Ronnie, even though Ronnie didn't say a peep. Yes. All right, so now we move on to Kathy Splinter, and she dedicates her life to helping veterans overcome their struggles, and she does this by drawing on her own experience. She joined the Army in 1966 and served in Vietnam as a nurse. And for her brave service, she was honored and awarded the Bronze Star upon returning home in 1969. Once back, though, she suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, and ultimately she won that battle, and she shares her battle plan with others suffering veterans. Ms. Splinter is the driving force behind Welcome Home Housing, an initiative to convert an old sweater mill into an apartment complex for veterans who suffer from physical and psychological disabilities. Her years of advocating for others cannot be applauded enough, Kathy. And so please welcome Kathy Splinter. And you're a hoot, too. I love the stories.
Thank you. I am delighted to be here today, and it's been a very emotional time preparing to talk to you, because I don't know how many of you I might have taken care of in Vietnam, because as I look around, I know that we're all of the same age. But let me begin. In '66, I was entering my third and final year at St. Luke's Hospital School of Nursing in New Bedford, Mass. The tuition for the last year was $150, and I didn't have it. I was from a large family, the second oldest of 9 children, and my parents didn't have it either. So I joined the Army Nurse Corps. I was paid a monthly stipend of $98, and the Army paid my tuition. In return, I agreed to finish school, pass the state boards to officially become a registered nurse, and then I would be commissioned as an officer in the United States Army Nurse Corps. I owed 2 years active duty for the 1 year of financial help. Man, what a deal. I got to travel while practicing my beloved nursing, and I got to go where all the men were. How could I lose? I thought, look out world, here I come. After passing my boards, I went to Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas. See, I'm already traveling. The Army taught us how to march, how to put our insignias on, how to salute, and they tried to teach me how to read maps and compasses. They weren't successful there. Now, they wanted to teach us because Vietnam War was going on, and I guess we didn't have enough training in nursing, so they wanted to learn to teach us how to intubate patients and how to debride gunshot wounds. And so they shot goats. They shot the goats a lot of times, and then there would be 3 and 4 teams of 2 nurses each, and we would debride the holes in these poor goats, and we'd all take turns learning how to intubate the goats. It was an awful, smelly, disgusting experience, and shortly after I left Fort Sam, they stopped that because the animal rights people moved in, and they didn't want us to hurt the animals anymore. And then we're going to have our weapons training. We were assembled at Camp Bullets in the middle of someplace in Texas, in stadium seating, and a captain struts out in front of us. He introduced himself, and he started to unbutton his fatigue shirt. He proceeded to pull a live skunk out from his uniform. I didn't know what this was going to turn into. I don't know if he expected us to scream or to pass out or to be, I don't know. I just think that he thought we were silly females. But we weren't impressed with his antics. So when he wasn't getting his laughs or whatever he was expecting, he handed the skunk off to someone, and he showed us a .45 handgun. He demonstrated how to check it to see if there was a round in the chamber, how to take out the clip and slap it back in, and how to line up for a shot. He passed this one .45 around to the entire platoon sitting on the seat, and after we all had a chance to show our proficiency at the .45, he told us that if we were ever in a dangerous situation, to throw the gun at him, hope you hit him in the head and knocked him out, and run for your life. And that was my weapons training. While we were in Texas, we did get to see San Antonio, the Alamo, several of the old missions, and was even able to go to Mexico over the Thanksgiving holidays. My dreams were coming true. After basic, I was assigned at Womack Army Hospital in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I was assigned to the URI ward, it's the upper respiratory ward. I arrived at the end of '67, and the winter was rainy and cold. The fear of meningitis was very real and present, and for the basic training recruits and the AIT recruits, if they got sick, because they were out on marches or doing whatever they do in basic training, and if their temp was 99.8 or above, they had to go to the hospital, because we did have a number of cases of meningitis. And 9 out of 10 of the kids were admitted to the hospital for a couple of days, just to get a little sleep, get their temperature down. Womack was a 750-bed hospital. It was only 1 or 2 years old. It was huge, twice the size of St. Luke's in New Bedford. And in 1 month, they didn't have enough beds for these kids coming in out of basic and everything. So they opened the old hospital area, which was across the street, and it's old World War II wooden buildings. And when we finished by the end of March, we had over 1,000 patients there. We exceeded what the normal occupancy of Womack was. These buildings weren't used except for those 1 or 2 months a year. They were dirty, they were unprepared, they were unsupplied. So guess who got to do that? And I was sort of indignant. After all, I was an Army. I was a nurse, I was an officer. And then to make matters worse, they made us work 10-hour shifts. I thought, this isn't the Army I signed on for. But they didn't really care about my opinion. I took care of a young officer. He was in the 82nd Airborne. We fell in love and was married in September 1968. In October of '68, I arrived in the Republic of Vietnam. Nothing prepared us for Vietnam, not my nurses training and not the Army basic training. I have never figured out why the Army has you arriving and departing in the middle of the night. But arrive we did in beautiful Cam Bay a little after midnight. Walking out of the plane was like walking into a wall of oppressive heat and humidity. I was a part of the nursing staff for a hospital that was already in Vietnam, the 312. But they didn't know we were coming. There were 50 women there standing around, and we stood for like 3 or 4 hours because there was no place to sit at the Cam Ranh airport. And they didn't, I thought, don't we have telephones that go across the, can't somebody call and tell them we're arriving? Finally, around 4:30 in the morning, a couple of buses came. They were Air Force buses and took us somewhere to have breakfast. They had like that heavy chicken wire on all the windows of the bus. You'd see them sometime in Israel because they don't want people throwing grenades or whatever into them. First time I had ever seen that. And after breakfast, we were all herded out to the airport and we got military transport, which was exciting. You know, they had those web seating, and they have a real strange seat lock, seat belt. It was real strange. But everything was exciting because it was new to us. We were exhausted. We went in our cords. We had heels, pumps on, and nylons. We had gloves, and we were going to war. And then when we arrived in Long Bend, again, they didn't know what to do with 50 women. Usually you came in country one at a time. So they cleaned out I don't know where the enlisted people went. They cleaned out a couple of barracks, and there we were. And we were hot and tired, so we wanted to have something to drink. And they said, okay, that's where your water is in the old Lister bags. That's a canvas, olive drab canvas thing on a tripod. And it's pea warm water that they put chlorine in. And I thought, if I have to drink that, I'm not going to survive the year. But it was the only way you could get some water. The sights and sounds and smells of Vietnam continued to assault us, but we still thought it was a great adventure. And I was seeing the world. I was assigned to the 312th Evacuation Hospital in Chu Lai, I Corps. It is a beautiful, beautiful tropical paradise. It was only marred by the sights and sounds of war. The coastline of Chu Lai was like Monterey Bay, California. It's this huge, sweeping crescent, huge beach. I spent 5 weeks on the medical ward learning about malaria and jungle rot and hepatitis, and then other routine medical conditions. Then I transferred to the intensive care unit. Oh my, what have I gotten myself into? No training could possibly prepare you for the wounds of war. From the end of November to the middle of July, I cannot separate the months. It was one long time frame. But 3 things stick out. I was able to see Bob Hope on Christmas Eve. It was wonderful, and the amphitheater in Chu Lai was packed with something like 20,000 troops. They were flying them in from all the LZs. The guys went crazy when Anne Margaret came on the stage, and the Gold Diggers were on the program that year. I mean, it was just exciting just to be in the thing. I have to tell you, myself and Nancy Randolph, another nurse, we got there early. We had worked nights, and we got up and we wanted to go and have a seat. And so there was a great big empty area, a lot of seats. So we sat down, and the guys behind us, they're hooting and hollering and catcalling, and they think it's wonderful. And then this MP walks over, and he says, "You have to move, ma'am." I thought that MP was going to be shot, because those guys wanted to sit with us. But we didn't buck the system too much. We stood off to the side, and we saw Bob Hope. But what sticks in my mind was at the end of the program, everybody came out and everybody stood, and we held hands and sang Silent Night. And to this day, that's a real, it just catches me, because you knew that many of these kids weren't going to be alive very much longer. And that is one of my, I think, blessed events that I experienced while I was in Vietnam. The second thing that changed my life was when Sharon Lane was killed in a mortar attack on June 8, 1969. Sharon had only been in country for 45 days when she was killed. That day destroyed my trust in my government. See, we were nurses. We were not supposed to die. In fact, we were told no nurse had ever been killed since World War II. Now, that was not true, but we didn't know that. And certainly Sharon shouldn't have died. You see, she still smiled, and she had the freshness of America about her. She had not learned to hate. She still believed, and I was so angry at her. For in looking at her, I knew I had changed. You had that dead stare when people said hello to you, just wasn't worth answering. My youth, my innocence, and my ideals had been shattered, and I didn't know what to do. So I hated her for dying. See, I believed that death was more merciful. Living was hell, and I was so tired. But at the time, I had no language to express these thoughts and feelings. So I just stuffed them down deep inside and kept on doing my nursing. But the carnage, man's inhumanity to man, was relentless and never ending. The third thing was when the 312th went home. Our new command was the 91st Evac Hospital. This was a regular Army unit, and the difference was like night and day from the 312th's command. The 312th was a reserve unit from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. They knew one another as a unit, and their esprit de corps was very, very different from the cold and calculating atmosphere of the 91st. Where we as nurses had been cherished and protected by the 312 members, we were treated as pieces of meat by the CO of the 91st. And I have to say, my attitude was less than positive with the change. Our 312 comrades had gone home, and we all had short-timers attitudes. But finally, our time came, and we arrived back in the world exactly a year later, in October '69. But the world had changed dramatically in that year. The anti-war movement was strong and very vocal. The My Lai massacre was underway, and the Vietnam soldiers were called baby killers and were spit on. And we had to come home to closed bases so we didn't get shot at. What in God's name had happened? It's been 49 years since I returned, and I still haven't fully answered that question. I do know that coming home was the worst part of my Vietnam experience. I didn't know where to go. All the girls that I served with were scattered across the United States. When I spoke to male members that had served in Vietnam, they would ask, "What did you do? You were a nurse." "Oh, that was okay. You didn't see combat. You were doing nursing." I was privileged to work with the very best of the best when I was in Vietnam. It astounds me to this day how young and innocent and inexperienced we were, both as nurses and as corpsmen, and yet we rose to the occasion, and I would like to believe that the men that we served got the best care that we were capable of giving. I agonized for many, many years that it was never enough, because we didn't know, we were so young. But I want you to know that we cared, and we did our very best. And that so many of you made it home helps my heart. After years of therapy, I am learning that we did the best we could. I am deeply honored to have the opportunity to share these thoughts with you today. I might have even taken care of a few of you. I have to say one of the things that was difficult in my getting the Bronze Star, because I don't mention it very often. Barbara was my head nurse. She came from Rhode Island, I came from Fall River. She trained at Mass General. It was like we were buddies when we sat together on the plane going to Vietnam. And she was 15 years older than I was, and she was a phenomenal nurse. She was a great teacher and mentor, and just a nice person, and we became friends there, and we went on vacation to Japan together. That she thought that I was a good nurse meant the world to me. I didn't care if I got it. That she thought enough of us to put us in for it blew my mind. And we had been told we had been put in for it, but we didn't find out until 1970. And I was working at Mass General, and I was so excited I had gotten it, and I was thanking Barbara in my mind, and I went into work one Sunday, and I said, "Guess what came in the mail? I got the Bronze Star." Without missing a beat, the doctor said, "Who did you sleep with to get that?"
Oh my God.
I couldn't believe it. And I never said another word. I never said another word about it. And so, even though Barbara, I mean, that was my joy that Barbara thought we had done a good job. But I survived the whole thing, and I'm a crazy Irish woman. And God bless you all, and thank you for your service.
Kathy, you tell your story beautifully, and now I'm going to be in tears if I keep thinking about some of your words. So I'm going to move on. Gary Bykirk is a former U.S. Army soldier who has received the Medal of Honor for his actions in the Vietnam War, and it's so impressive, his personal story. In April of 1970, his unit came under heavy enemy fire at Camp Dak Siang. When he saw a fellow Green Beret go down, he ran through heavy fire to tend to him until he himself was hit by mortar shrapnel, which struck near his spine and paralyzed him at that moment. So he got a village fighter to carry him through withering enemy fire so that he could treat the fallen villagers. And Sergeant Bykirk was hit in the side as he gave mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to a village fighter. And then he was shot in the stomach. So barely conscious, bleeding heavily, he continued to fire on the enemy. He is the bravery that does not quit. Please welcome Gary Bykirk.
I'm going to try to use the mic, but if I have a tendency to trail off, especially since my wife is not here. She usually keeps me not only at a good voice level, but keeps me from going off on all these bunny trails. Because she'll usually throw something at me, or So if in the back, if I start to trail off and you can't hear anything, wave or throw something at me. I'm used to ducking. What Christy didn't mention was it, and probably one of the most significant things that happened in my life is I just retired from 33 years working as a middle school counselor. So it was while doing cafeteria duty that I learned that it's harder to hit a moving target. So if I do start to trail off, I'll slip into my cafeteria voice. I wish I would have learned it was hard to hit a moving target, because I might not have gotten shot 3 times in Vietnam, but I do say that Vietnam was good training for working with 7th graders. Okay, I think I can get back on track. Every time I hear something about my story or whatever, things start to happen. Thank you for not reading the citation, because I never read the citation, because when I listen to it, I hear more than the words. I still hear explosions. I still hear cries. So even just thinking about it sometimes gets me going a little bit. And I thought it was okay, but I guess I'm not okay. So, just kind of ad-lib for a few minutes until I can get back on track and follow the script. I promised my wife that I would follow the script so that I would keep you here till 7 o'clock tonight, because I got so many stories that I could tell you. But it is a blessing to be able to be here. I cannot believe the number of opportunities and places that I have been allowed to go. People I've been allowed to meet. And people who would actually sit and listen to what I had to say. I'm not used to that, especially working with middle school kids, Sometimes it makes me think that you got the wrong guy, I shouldn't be here. Why would anybody want to listen to what I have to say? But it's said that if you live long enough, life kind of goes in full circle. And now that I'm 67 and never planned on living past 36, I'm able to look back and see how that life has kind of gone in full circle again. Because in a sense, I'm home again. After I got out of the Valley Forge Hospital, I was assigned to Fort Devens, Massachusetts, with the 10th Special Forces Group. So it is good to be home. As I was driving into Massachusetts on the Mass Pike, I was thinking about that first time in 1970 when I was driving into Fort Devens. Very, very special memories about being here in New England. And to think about where I have been and have been allowed to travel and to visit, and the people that I've met, it seems so strange to me, especially considering where I started from. You see, because after Fort Devens, I went back, tried college again, but that didn't work out. And I ended up living in a cave in northern New Hampshire, about 4 hours from here, up in Lancaster, New Hampshire, in between Lancaster and Berlin, Gorham, New Hampshire. You might say, why would you live in a cave? Well, after Vietnam and after some experiences on the college campus that Kathy alluded to, I was spit on, what's called some not so nice things. I decided that I needed to seek the security, the safety, and the solitude of living in a cave. It was there that I tried to put some sense back into my life. Tried to come to grips with the chaos that had become my life. You see, like most who have been in combat, I came back from Vietnam knowing that things were different. Life was different. I was different. I had been changed. And like most, we all know that war challenges who we are, what we believe in. It challenges how we see ourselves, and it tests our values. It tests what we do and why we do what we do. Well, if the war challenged it, my homecoming, like many, almost destroyed who I was. You see, like many, without that community that Kevin talked about, to offer that support, that care, that understanding, that simple thanks, that helps us deal with the trauma and the pain and the hurt that is a natural result of war. The resulting wounds from that are much greater than any wounds I received in Vietnam. And so I sought the safety, security, and the solitude of a cave in Mount Adams. Not only did I seek the actual walls of a cave, but I quickly built walls around me, psychological, emotional walls. I didn't want to let people in. I was afraid of letting people see me the way I saw myself. I was afraid of what would come out, the anger and the rage that I still felt. So the thing to do was to keep people out and keep myself in that cave. But while I was in that cave, I began to wrestle with something. You see, when I was in Vietnam, we had this saying that was on a plaque on our team house. And it said, to really live, you must almost die. To those that fight for it, life has a meaning the protected will never know. And some versions say life has a flavor that the protected will never know. Well, I remember seeing that, and as soon as I saw that, boy, that just struck a chord within me, and I never forgot that. Matter of fact, when I came home, I tried to look up the origin of that, and according to Wikipedia, that was written by a Marine at Khe Sanh on a sea rations box. I kind of doubt that because I never met a Marine that could write. I have a good friend that's a Marine. He said, that's okay. I never met an Army guy that could read anything. So, but yeah, I started thinking about that. To really live, you must almost die. To those that fight for it, life has a meaning that the protected will never know. So while I was in that cave, I started poring over life. I started poring over my experiences in Vietnam. I started searching through all that anger, that hurt, that pain, the guilt that was there. Trying to find something that I could salvage and that I could rebuild my life on. Something that I could refocus on that would help me find a place for other people in my life and would help me find a place for me in their lives. Or I could just continue to live in the cave forever. I started making some progress. 2 years I've lived in the cave. Started making some progress. And then one day I got I'm going to resist going down that bunny trail, but I used to go into town to get my mail in Lancaster at a post office box. And I went in there one day and I was told I needed to be down in town because I was being awarded the Medal of Honor. I was in a cave when I found out I was being awarded the Medal of Honor. They sent an officer up there. I came in from the cave. I had my hair down to here. I looked like a Jeremiah Johnson kind of guy, and it was great. But all of a sudden, I started fighting another battle. I just spent 2 years trying to forget about that. And now they're going to give me a medal. Again, the guilt started. The unworthiness. pain that I was feeling all resurfaced again. Well, one of the things I had taken to the cave with me, besides a guitar and a journal, was a Bible that a friend had given me. And shortly after being told I was going to be awarded the Medal of Honor, I remember reading in the book of Psalms, Psalm 49, verse 20, that says that man that is in honor but understands not is like a beast that perishes. Man that has honor but doesn't understand is no better than a beast that perishes. So I just said, okay, God, I guess I got some learning to do, huh? I need some understanding. I need to learn about honor then, huh? I guess you're going to need to teach me, because I need to learn about a lot of things. Teach me about honor. Teach me about life. Teach me about duty. Because I really don't want to stay in this cave forever. Well, what I want to share with you in the next few minutes is what I began to learn about life, about honor, and about what the Medal of Honor means to me. Not all of it was learned in that cave. I've had some tremendous teachers, men who have gone before me, great men, Joe Foss, Charles McGilvery, who was from Weymouth, Bob Howard, men who have received the Medal of Honor and have taught me what it means to be a recipient of this. And what I've come to understand, as every Medal of Honor recipient would tell you, that this medal is not about me. As a matter of fact, it's not about any one person who did one thing on one particular day. Because we would all say that all that we did was what we were trained to do. All we did was what our duty was to do. All we did was what that person next to us was trained to do, and we knew that they would do for us. That is the camaraderie that exists among the military. It's a tremendous feeling to be able to know that that person next to you has your life in their hands, and you trust them with it. Because he or she trusts you with their life too. That's the camaraderie that exists. And in a sense, that's what this medal represents. The honor that comes with this medal is not about one person who did one thing on one particular day. The honor that comes with this medal comes because we who are allowed to wear it are entrusted to care for something that's greater than one person who did one thing on one day. The honor that comes with this medal comes with the fact that we're entrusted to care. We hold it in trust for countless individuals who did countless acts above and beyond. We care and hold something that symbolizes the values and the beliefs and the ideals that have motivated men and women from the beginning of our history as a country. The honor that comes for this is not because it symbolizes one act by one person, but because it symbolizes countless acts done by countless individuals. We've come to understand that this medal is not about me, it's about others. It's about that World War II vet that you might see at McDonald's early in the morning, or at the mall sitting around having a cup of coffee with his friends. Or maybe he's that solitary veteran sitting in a nursing home, thinking about his buddies and the special times they had in Europe, North Africa, or the South Pacific. It's about them. It's about those men on D-Day that never made it to the shore. It's about those men in the 82nd and 101st who on D-Day never made it to the ground but were shot in midair. It's not about me, it's about them. It's not about me, it's about that wounded Korean, Iraq, Vietnam, Afghan veteran who every day, or at least once a week, goes to the VA as they try to survive and deal with the effects and the trauma of war. This medal is not about me. It's about that 18-year-old who has just finished basic training and with such tremendous pride and feelings of greatness because he's finished. He's now serving his country. He can't wait to put his uniform on and go home so his family and his friends can see it. It's not about me. It's about the Gold Star family members who will never be able to fill that empty place at their table. No, it's not about me. We've come to understand, those of us who wear this, that when we wear this Medal of Honor, there is no room for self. No room for self at all. It's worn for all those who have sworn allegiance to this country and who have taken the oath of service and have put on the uniform of the U.S. military. It's worn for every soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine who spent lonely nights on a foreign field, wondering and hoping that they're not forgotten. This medal is not worn for self. It's worn for that man or woman that you see in the airport, hugging their kids and their family as they're getting ready to be deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan for the 4th or 5th time. I was down at Fort Bragg a couple weeks ago and I was talking to a Master Sergeant, 3rd Special Forces. 23 years he's been in. He's been deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan 15 times. 15 times in 23 years. He spent more time overseas than with his family. This medal is more for him. Those of us who wear the medal, we've come to understand that the Medal of Honor symbolizes what lives in the hearts and in the minds and the soul of every person that loves this country. We've come to realize that this Medal of Honor symbolizes what causes me to choke up so I can't even finish the Pledge of Allegiance. It's what causes me to tear when I hear taps being played. Some would call that patriotism. And truly, the Medal of Honor does symbolize patriotism. It's a part of who we are as a nation. It's part of our legacy. It's a part of who we are as a people. Well, it's said that patriotism flows from the heart of the soldier. And I tried to communicate from my heart today what the Medal of Honor has meant and what I have learned about life, about duty, and about sacrifice. But I began by quoting Psalm 49, verse 20, that man that is in honor but understands not is like a beast that perishes. I've tried to share with you what I've learned about duty and honor. But I want to finish by talking on a very personal level. Much more personal than I've tried and I've spoken already. You see, because on a more personal level, what the Medal of Honor means to me is truly, it's not about me or what I've done. But what the Medal of Honor means to me on a personal level is about God and what He has done in my life. You see, because just as I believe that you cannot talk about the history of this nation without acknowledging God and His role and His blessing on this country, I can't share my story without acknowledging God and what He has done in my life. Because it's only by His grace that I was able to survive the Battle of Vietnam. It's only by His love and forgiveness that I've been able to survive the trauma and the aftermath of war. And it's only because of His strength and His faithfulness in my life that I've been able to survive these past 40 years as a veteran, as a husband, as a father, as a middle school counselor, only by His strength and faithfulness. So when I wear this Medal of Honor on a more personal level, I wear it for His honor. Now, in closing, I want to share that I've tried to communicate what the Medal of Honor means and about the honor that comes with wearing the Medal of Honor. But the Medal of Honor also comes with a charge to each and every person. And there are 78 of us that are alive. Each of us has the charge to, no matter where we go, whoever we speak to, we are to always honor, always remember those who have served and continue to serve. I was at Fort Bragg 3 weeks ago, and I heard a Gold Star father share that the greatest wound of war is to be forgotten. I heard that and I said, wow, that's really profound. I'd never heard that before. And I was sitting in the lobby out here earlier today and I saw it's one of the things for Wounded Warrior Project. It's their saying, but I'd never heard this before. The greatest tragedy of war is to be forgotten. Those of us who have the Medal of Honor have that charge to always honor and remember those who have served, and to never let anyone forget that the freedom we have comes with a very, very precious price. We have a charge to never let anyone take for granted the freedom that we have, and to always remind people that we need to be eternally grateful to those who have sacrificed and given the ultimate sacrifice for the freedoms and liberties that we as a people enjoy. At the risk of quoting one more saying that you may have heard before, but it's another one of these things. I'd never heard this before either. I guess I stayed in the cave too long. But I heard this quote and it really gave me some insight into the heart of the American warrior. And the first time I heard this was said by Sal Junta, who's a Medal of Honor recipient from Afghanistan. And he said this when he was speaking at a panel on a college campus, when some educated person asked him about what it was like to live after killing people. Sal gave this response. He said, I'll tell you what it's like. I'll tell you what's in my heart. He said, the true soldier fights not because he hates what's in front of him, but the true soldier fights because he loves and is loved by what is behind him. That's the heart of the American warrior. Not because he hates what's in front of him, but because he loves what is behind him. For those of you that have served here, thank you for your service. And for your families, thank you for the sacrifice that you have made as well. I'm honored to be able to call you brothers. The Gold Star family members, thank you. Your sacrifice, your loss, holds always a very special place in my heart. For those of the community that are here, thank you for caring. Thank you for your support. Thank you for standing behind and standing alongside our veterans and those in our military who continue to serve. Thank you for this opportunity that I've had to be able to share with you what's been on my heart. And I pray that as you continue to serve, may God continue to bless you, and may God continue to bless this great nation. May He keep it strong. Thank you.
I want to thank you very much, guest speakers. I would like to make some presentations of awards. I'd like to have Kathy Spenta, please. Present this citation to you on behalf of the Certificate of Appreciation for your dedication and support to the veterans of the Vietnam, the women of veterans and nurses, to the Purple Heart recipients and their families. We extend our sincere appreciation for your service to our country. Kevin Lambert. Certificate of Appreciation for your support the Department of Massachusetts Military Order of Purple Heart, its members and their families, Gold Star mothers, Gold Star families, honoring the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War and veterans. Gary? We have a special award for Gary, a Purple Heart recipient. I'd like to present you this Purple Heart case flag for your service and from the Department of Massachusetts. Very special, Christy Lee. For your dedication and support to the Department of Massachusetts Military Order of Purple Heart, the members and their family, the Gold Star mothers, Gold Star families, honoring the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War and Vietnam veterans. We'd like to present this certificate. Last but not least, we'd like to call on our Region 1 Commander. And we'll forgive him because he's a Marine. Liam Brown, for your continued support to the Department of Massachusetts Military Order of Purple Heart, to the members and their families, Gold Star mothers and Gold Star families, honoring the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War and Vietnam veterans.
Thank you very much. Good, thanks. Oh, thank you very much.
On behalf of the department and our members, we'd like to thank everybody for coming. And now if we can get everybody up here for a group photo that we can send down to DOD. Thank you all, the veterans, and Vietnam veterans, welcome home.